Hey, Reluctant Preppers, you could have been watching this video the moment it came out.
By going to HealingYourself.Life and subscribing to our new sister channel, Healing Yourself. See you there.
It seems so hard to order. Who can I trust and how do I even start?
Oh, you just go to sdbullion.com/rp, pick out whatever gold or silver you want, add it to your cart, you can check out, and it's on its way. And they're A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau.
Wow, it's that easy?
Your first ounce of silver is at spot price, and you get free shipping on any order over $99 at sdbullion.com/rp. HealingYourself.Life provides information for awareness, educational, and support purposes only and does not diagnose or prescribe treatment for any medical condition. Viewers are encouraged to do their own due diligence and consult with their own medical caregivers before making personal treatment decisions. Welcome back to HealingYourself.Life and Reluctant Preppers. I'm Dunnigan Kaiser.
And I'm Melody Kaiser.
We have with us today the author David Seaman. He's the author of this book, the DeFlame Diet book, and this more recent book that came out, a companion series, the DeFlame Diet for Breast Health and Cancer Prevention. We had him on our show about a month ago talking on this newest book, and there were a lot of viewer questions submitted that we didn't get time to go into, so we're going to do that today. So Dr. Seaman, thanks for joining us again here on our show.
You bet. Thanks for having me again.
The first question we got is from Reinhardt Apples, who has this rather provocative question, which I think is fruitful. Has the DeFlame diet scientifically been proven to reverse heart disease? How is it different from a whole food, plant-based, no oil, no salt, no sugar diet?
Yeah, I mean, those questions are they reflect a lack of physiological thinking when it comes to diet. So I'll give you an example. If you want, so the purpose of me choosing the term the DeFlame Diet, because it would be kind of stupid to put a DeFlame Diet on the cover, right? I mean,
Okay.
Who would say that? Atkins, a Atkins diet, right?
Right.
So you have to put the before the name, right? So people who are basically followers of dietary protocols based upon following a leader, they will see the word the and then think, well, I mean, mine is the plant-based diet. So right now what's become very popular is called, the carnivore diet. Have you heard that?
Yeah. You have?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very popular. It's trending a lot on Twitter, Twitter. I've seen it mostly on Instagram. Joe Rogan has a massive podcast, as you probably know, and one of his more well-known guests, his name is Jordan Peterson. Have you heard of him?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So he's great with, in my view, in terms of all the psychology stuff. I don't think there's his political stuff is a little bit not as strong as his psychology. But it turns out that his daughter has terrible. I'm not sure if it's juvenile arthritis or what it is, but it's autoimmune.
Right, a
I've
degenerative
heard
joint
him.
disorder. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the poor thing had to have joint replacements, I think, when she was young. And so she tried everything. You can just listen to her describe it. So she backed into eating only fatty meat because vegetables screwed her up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? So if she's on a plant-based diet, and by the way, the word plant-based diet is like the dumbest term they could have described. Because when you use the word based means the foundation.
Okay.
It doesn't mean the whole thing. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I say that my house is concrete based, you would say, well, what's the rest of it made of?
Right.
You wouldn't assume that it's concrete everywhere, right? Now, if you watch Hansel and Gretel, she's got the gingerbread house. I think the base was also probably gingerbread. I mean, I don't know, but the point is the whole thing is candy, right? So the person who asked that question should look at the people who are pushing this ideology, as opposed to just saying you should be vegans. Now, when I grew up, because I was born in 1960, when I first heard the term vegetarian, that meant only vegetation. It didn't. There was no dairy, no eggs, no meat, no fish, nothing with eyes, and nothing that came from animals that had eyes. right? So it was pure vegetation, vegetables, fruit, legumes, grains, nuts, and whatever else I may have forgotten, but it would be pure vegetation. Then people said, well, I'm a lacto-ovo vegetarian. Really? Really? And so then if you say the word vegetarian now, the assumption is you're probably lacto-ovo, because otherwise you would have said vegan. So then all of a sudden the word plant-based shows up. Why? Why not just say vegan and be honest intellectually and not confuse the people who are already easily confused and emotionally screwed up when it comes to diet? Because everybody who is forcing themselves to eat properly, what they're doing is they're adhering to a set of guidelines, and none of those guidelines involve eating lots of cake and cookies, right? So you need mental ammunition and a game plan to stick to your diet. And so with this game plan, you embrace it emotionally. And then when you hear something like the word the DeFlame Diet, that first guy asks this question because it's like challenging his emotional attachment to the word plant-based. That's why he wrote it like that, as opposed to just saying, okay, so what Seaman talks about is keeping inflammation normal, keeping inflammation at a proper level. So my approach is to avoid ideological possession by words about food and focus on inflammatory markers. So if you take, for example, you think about, you've heard of the Okinawan population.
Yes.
They're a blue zone,
Yeah.
right?
Right. They live
Just like
more than
my
100
longevity.
years. Yeah.
Right. So that's probably the most famous blue zone. It's a good one to think about. So it's the southernmost area of Japan. Although I was told by people who travel there that they prefer to be Okinawans, not Japanese. Whatever. I mean, it's not my area, so I don't really know the difference. But the point, though, is what do they live on there? They live on a small amount of rice compared to a whole lot more of that same rice in northern Japan. Their primary calories are these purple sweet potatoes that I've never had. I've had regular sweet potatoes, but I've not had these purple sweet potatoes. A buddy of mine who's he grows them, but he's in California, so I can't go score any spuds to make my own. So I grow sweet potatoes, but I don't grow the Japanese purple sweet potatoes. So most of their calories come from these sweet potatoes. So what else do their calories come from? And by the way, they're a blue zone, right? So if you're a blue zone, the odds of you dropping dead of heart disease or cancer is pretty remote. You're going to die of old age unless you get injured and infected. And so their primary calories are the purple sweet potatoes, and then sea vegetables, and then seafood. Well, how is it that they live their lives free of disease? They live long if they're eating the dreaded meat. Now, they don't just eat fish. They'll have pork, they'll have eggs, that kind of stuff too. But their primary calories are these purple sweet potatoes. So when you look at that, well, why would anyone say that eating animal products is going to cause problems? Why would anyone want to become possessed by radical vegan ideology? You can go south to the south. You can actually go from Japan. You have to go south towards Australia and go west into it's called the Solomon Sea area, the South Pacific, to New Guinea. And so you go to New Guinea, and their primary fat source there is going to be coconuts, so veganish, right? And then they eat but most of their calories come from sweet potatoes, yams, and taro root. They cultivate all of it. And then they eat a bunch of fish, and they have some eggs and some chicken also. Guess what they die of? No cancer, no heart disease, no diabetes. And once again, so that would be called a paleo diet. That's similar to the Japanese version of it. Right. So these radical vegans who call themselves plant-based, if you watch the show What the Health, you have MDs who go on there and they say, oh, it's the animal fat that coats the red blood cells and coats this and does this. And that's just such, the old word for saying malarkey. It's absolutely ridiculous. And so they think that a paleo diet is a meat-based diet. What does that mean? Right? They don't even describe it. So a paleo diet is reflects specifically the foods that were available in your geographic area before you were able to have food from other parts of the world sent in. So the plant-based vegan radicals, what they will say is that, the Eskimo high-fat diet, that's not true. They didn't live longer. Well, absolutely, they actually did. The further north that you went, so that you arrived in Eskimo land, the Arctic Circle, where the trading post and where no European or American or Canadian wanted to go to, what did they live on? Well, mostly fatty animals.
Right, and seal blubber and things like that.
Right.
And they found, actually, I've heard, watched a show on it one time, and their cholesterol is just fine because of the cold climate. They actually need that fat and stuff in it. I don't think they have heart disease either. So, but they're eating a lot of fat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
So when you look at so one of these radical vegan MDs on him, he's a smart guy otherwise. I mean, these are not unintelligent people.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that a lot of them are a lot smarter than I am. But this is the problem, though. When you're possessed by any ideology, like the emperor's new clothes, who saw through it? The 10-year-old kid. Right. So or
somebody who practices and then realizes they have to cheat because they have to start eating some chicken, or what we've heard that story where they really desperately wanted to stay on the vegan diet but couldn't because they were getting unhealthy.
If they want to be vegans, the best way to do it is to I think avoid whole grains and focus your calories on legumes that are far more nutritious than whole grains, and then get calories because you need dense calories in order to meet your caloric threshold. If you just live on vegetables and you need 2,000 calories per day, you're going to have to eat 20 1-pound tubs of spring mix, which is 100 calories each. Good luck living on pure vegetables. So you got to get calorically dense foods. And so those calorically dense foods are going to be sweet potatoes as a good choice, other roots, and then nuts. The best choice would be macadamia, and then legumes, avocados, coconut. And then make sure that your B12 and your iron is okay, that kind of thing. And that would be the best way to be a vegan, as opposed to just saying plant-based and having no explanation, and then lying about the research when it comes to the Eskimos. Because what they found, the northernmost Eskimos that they could get to, they had dirty teeth, no cavities. And their tents were essentially free of sugar and flour. You go to the southern ports, the southern areas where the settlers, the Canadians and the Americans, Europeans kind of came in with their stuff. They had a lot more sugar and flour in their tents, and their teeth were cleaned by dentists, but they had cavities and they were much less healthy. So this radical vegan medical doctor who's smarter than I am, either he lied or he just couldn't see it because of his ideological possession with being a vegan. And then they lie also about this diet called the Kempner rice diet. So this was really interesting. This guy said he put people who had hypertension and chronic kidney disease on basically white rice, sugar, fruit, and fruit juice. I know. So look at the look on your face, Gunnigan, right? The look on your face says the story. But what happens though is that when anybody goes on one of these diets, they consciously eat less calories. So within a few months, people were dropping 150 pounds on white rice, white sugar, fruit juice, and fruit. Okay. And they reversed their hypertension, and they reversed their chronic kidney disease improved. And so in the movie, the radical vegan movie called What the Health, they talk about the Kempner rice diet. And they make it sound like you can eat as much sugar as you want and there's never a problem. Well, you can just do 1,000 calories or less per day, drink a bunch of water, live on white rice, and you'll shred away and deflame, because the most important anti-inflammatory thing we do is get our caloric intake correct. Anytime we go over, if this is my caloric threshold, anything above this means I'm gaining weight. No matter what pushes me over the edge will flame me up. And so they're disingenuous about the Kempner rice diet. They're disingenuous about the Eskimo diet. And so to answer that question, which hopefully has a better context now, is if you want to be a vegan, well then be deflamed with your vegan choices. I know obese vegans because they eat pounds and pounds of white potatoes and white rice, and they're sick as hell, despite the fact that they are pure vegan. It's because they are like French fries are vegan. Is that supposed to be good for you? That's plant-based, right? So these questions are just based upon not understanding eating history, the research itself, and therefore you end up with weird views of the world. So like, why would Jordan Peterson and his daughter, who are now basically symptom-free when they're eating basically just fatty meat, and by the way, the fatty meat diet was studied 100 years ago. So this Canadian anthropologist, his last name is Stefansson. His first name is like Vilhemar. I think Vladimir, but it's not Vladimir. It's Vilhemar Stefansson. He spent 9 years in the Arctic Circle, where you basically never see green, if you're up high enough, right? And so he ate basically all meat for 9 years. No evidence of any heart disease or anything at all. He comes back down to the New York City area. He basically eats they do a study with him. You can look it up. They do a study with him, and all he ate was meat for a year, and every single meal he ate was eaten at Bellevue Hospital, which back then wasn't the loony bin. It was just a hospital. So they originally wanted him to eat lean meat. So he said, it's not good. Well, I'll do it, though. They developed digestive distress and other issues when they ate a low-fat, lean meat diet because you cannot live on amino acids. It's a disaster. And so they ate a high-fat meat diet, calorically appropriate, with no untoward effects at all. So if any diet that is going to have a chance of reversing heart disease, like, for example, if you do a high-calorie flour and rice and whatever else, but pure vegan, that won't reverse cancer or anything else. You have to be hypocaloric first. So that is why I suggest everybody getting their markers checked. And so you should want to get your fasting glucose as close to 80 or less as possible. Get as close to 80. I mean, below 100 is considered normal, but once you hit 100, you now have metabolic syndrome, and therefore you're living in the hyperinsulin world. And insulin is known to be a proliferator for cancer and heart disease.
We were going to get back to you later on with a question about insulin too.
Yeah. So no matter what diet you choose, if you wanted, like, this is the other weird thing, and this speaks to it perfectly, this whole carnivore diet thing. So a lot of people became fans of Jordan Peterson because he's articulate, intelligent, right? I mean, he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
So people just decide, well, since Jordan Peterson is eating all meat, so will I. What idiots. He backed it. Nobody on purpose would never want to eat anything else but meat. I mean, some people do just because they get committed to it. It's going to be pure carnivores because they want to do it. But he didn't want to do it. He backed into it. His daughter backed into it. So why would anybody want to just do, and the all-meat diet needs to be a high-fat meat diet at a properly. Now, if you look at him too, if you look at Jordan, and I did a video making fun of the whole carnivore thing a little bit on my YouTube, DeFlame Nutrition YouTube channel. If you look at, I have pictures of him pre and post. He was sucking down Coke, eating all kinds of stuff. He was 30 or 40, 50 pounds heavier, puffy eyes, swollen looking, just looks sick as hell. And so he's down to what he weighed probably when he was, a senior in college on all meat, which means he's calorically restricted. And so his calories come from fatty meat. And I guarantee that him and his daughter, if you look at their inflammatory markers, they're all normal. So theoretically, you could reverse heart disease with an all-meat diet too. Now, why would you think this? Well, because if you look at the Eskimos, they're not riddled with heart disease, and they're eating more blubber than anybody. If you go to and visit, and this is like, these magnificent pictures, you can see pictures, they're called the Maasai warriors. Yeah, so there's these like 6'6" black dudes, skinny, and they wear these beautiful red like garments, and they just do vertical jumps. So historically, what did they eat? They only ate the cattle that they raised, the milk that they got from the cattle and the blood from the cattle that they put in the milk. That was their diet. Guess who was dying from heart disease in the Maasai tribe? Nobody.
Right.
Because they were calorically restricted. And that is what all these radical carnivore, vegan, whatever paleo, the radicals I'm talking about, they don't understand that caloric restriction, calorically appropriate, is the key. And if you're doing a carnivore diet and your markers suck, well, then you need to change what you're doing. Get calorically restricted, get to your proper body weight, and then if that's still not working, well, then you should probably throw vegetables in there. And if you're doing the radical vegan thing and it's not working, well, you got to eat more healthy vegan foods. And if that's not working, then you got to throw some animal fat in there. So you let the markers guide you, not the dictates from people who lie about the Eskimos' eating patterns. So it's the markers that are what should be followed. So the DeFlame Diet is not about specific food. It is about tracking inflammatory markers. And if someone wants to read them for free, they can just Google or DuckDuckGo for your crowd.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Right.
They can DuckDuckGo simply BMI space pain. And my paper is the first one that appears in the Google search and DuckDuckGo. And you can click on it and go to table 1, and that lists all the markers that you want to have normal, no matter what dietary name you are following. Make the markers the goal rather than following the dictates of some guy who just fell into it. Anyway, that's a really long answer.
Yeah,
So
that's
but you
though.
hit on something that's essential there, and that is empirical observation of observable outcomes, such as these actual markers, which are telling you, they're giving you an indication of your actual physiological health, rather than just some. So it's almost like the debate that goes on these days about using, natural law and free markets and that sort of thing versus command and control economies, where you get some ideological narrative and just goes, this is the way my vision of utopia is, and that's why it's going to be for everybody. And every single one of those societies just crashes and burns. So we see that at the national level, we see it at the individual level. So you're going to ask a follow-on question?
And this other viewer asks, also I read on your site that you sell a lot of supplements. Why is that? Shouldn't your diet contain all the nutrients you need, ? With the exception of B12 and D? Yeah,
so if you look at, do you guys ever drink wine, perhaps? Cabernet?
Yeah.
Are you Cabernet fans?
Our favorite is gin and tonic, but yeah, we do.
We wine,
Merlot, yeah, we like a Shiraz or things like that. Yeah.
So if you drink alcohol, alcohol is going to deplete some magnesium, and so you can go right on to, well, you probably can't find it now, but an MD who said we should, if you drink, like I like to drink a couple glasses of red wine every day, and therefore I take magnesium because red wine, alcohol depletes magnesium. So that's the reason to take. So there are 3 supplements. The three that I think everyone should consider taking, and they're cheap. They're not special formulas, which of course makes people who want to practice nutrition, they kind of like, well, I want to make it more complicated and special and personalized. I'm like, yeah, well, so they are the ones who think you got to take this for that, that for this, on and on and on. So I'm a deflamer. So I look at the three supplements that give you the biggest bang for the deflame buck. One of them is vitamin D, which very few people get enough of because they're not in the sun. So how do you figure that? Go get a vitamin D test done. And if your Ds are low, you got to take vitamin D or go in the sun. And if your sun exposure is not the right time and your D is not like at least 50, 60 or nanograms per ml or higher, you should be taking some vitamin D. So how many people living today are not stressed out?
Right. And
No. But so stress depletes magnesium.
And I think, if you eat sugar, your B vitamins are depleted. So
magnesium and chromium get depleted also.
Right.
So when I drink red wine and I get a but a jaw ache, the muscles in the jaw start aching within the hour, could that be related to the magnesium depletion, or is it not that fast?
No, not that fast. That'll be something else, and I don't know what that is.
All right.
And notice what I just said, I don't know. I don't know a lot of stuff, right? So I only talk about stuff that I know.
Go ahead. You're back on supplements. Sorry.
No. That wasn't me jumping on you. That was just an example of like what people should do. So people who like to post stuff on, like I had this crazy guy who I did this video on how sugar causes inflammation. And so if you overeat sugar, you get a hyperglycemic, so sugar goes up, and the sugar rushes into all of your cells, including muscles, and you get this blast of glucose into the cells. And the response that the body has to this hyperglycemic load it's an alarm reaction. There's actually, and one of the terms is that they're called alarmins are released.
Alarmins. Wow. Okay.
So you get this alarm reaction, and the body responds by dumping inflammatory chemistry. So I explained it step by step. You can watch it. All your people can watch it. Step by step, how it works. It's not step by step scientifically. It's scientifically accurate. It's just shortened so that people don't lose their minds over it. So one of the posts from these crazy people who just are bloggers or posters or trollers is, well, this isn't true. Inflammation only comes from omega-6 fatty acids, blah, 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 blah. Now, I just went through step by step by step how it works, and they go into total denial because it's something new. So people just love to just say what they were told by their dietary, political, social leader, and most of them haven't had the time to actually go look and see how it works. So the third supplement would be fish oil. How much should you take? Nobody knows for sure. 1 to 3 grams is probably the dose that is good enough to help normalize your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. With that in mind, I get this email from a guy. We go back and forth multiple times because his leader says that any fish oil that you take is going to cause autoimmune disease, chronic inflammation, cytotoxicity. So I said, well, send me the papers because I don't know everything. I only know everything that I know.
Right, exactly. And that's true for anyone, yeah.
Right. So send me the papers. And he just could send me like a couple of titles. He didn't even read them. So why did he say that? Because his leader's rhetoric suits his emotional whatever, and so he just repeats the story. So I said, well, I'll go and I'll get the articles. I read them before. I'm going to read them again more carefully. I knew he was wrong. That's why I went into the back and forth debate with them. I did a video on it, like, can fish oil cause inflammation? Of course, well, here's what the study showed. So the average American is taking 1,000 milligrams, and we're talking the average, male in America is like 200 pounds probably. The average woman is 150 pounds because everyone's big and fat, right? So you're talking 1,000 milligrams, 1 gram. They gave these rats the equivalent of like 20 grams or more.
Oh.
A dose that no human would ever take. So the people who are following this guy's ideology haven't read the papers to see that his suggestion or his claim or his proclamation is based on a fish oil intake that no human would ever do. So I went back and forth with this guy, and he wouldn't budge because he's possessed by the ideology no differently than Democrats and Republicans who actually believe that they're like, remember, a politician is by definition is someone who will lie and say anything to get elected.
Right.
Believe them, right?
Yeah.
It's just amazing because people don't choose to look into it more, and so they fall into whatever dietary ideology they're going to fall into. So on my website, I don't sit there and none of my videos are videos that push people to take supplements at all. I mean, a couple here, this is why it would be good. But it's all about deflaming. So that guy's criticism of the whole diet thing, well, shouldn't diet cover? Well, what about soil fertility?
Yep. Our soil has been depleted because we put all these fertilizers. We're not putting the nutrients back in the soil as we should be. So yeah, you probably know more about that than I do. So go ahead.
I'm not a soil fertility guy, but I do know that was a concern back in the earliest I read on this was, I forget, he may have been from Harvard. I think it was an Ivy League guy, and he said the biggest concern for the future is the lack of micronutrient density in the soil.
Yeah.
So why would you trust, plants that are grown on soil from who knows where, when you can ensure you can fortify yourself with? I mean, the most important would be like iodine. Most Americans don't get enough iodine. Zinc is a problem. Magnesium is a problem. And the issue too is for us sitting on our butts all day long, we eat less calories than our hunter-gatherer foreparents.
Right.
So they would eat much more calories because they're basically walking all day long, right? So their micronutrient density in their diet was far more than what we currently get. So it makes no sense to me to not take key supplements.
Oh,
and the ones that I suggest.
I want to make sure I get it, because I'm not,
Yeah.
maybe if I missed it, maybe other people missed it. You're pointing out that back in like the Little House on the Prairie days, these people are doing hard physical labor all day,
Right.
so therefore they're eating tons of food, and therefore whatever these micronutrients are that are in the food, they're getting a massively higher doses. Even if the food was equivalent, and you say, we think today's food may not even be equivalent to that because of the farming techniques have changed and the soil has changed and everything. So we're eating fewer calories of less nutrient dense food. They were eating more calories of more nutrient dense food, so they were getting tons more nutrients than we're getting.
Yeah. So that addresses that question, and it's so obvious, right? It's so obvious. Why would the question not just be asked without being provocative, right? Because it's like a know-it-all question for no reason. Like, I think that if that guy wants to be a hardcore radical vegan, be that way. Make sure your markers are good, and just leave the carnivores alone. I'm not either.
It's great. And then this is a question from Free. Sugar is an inflammatory, they state. And I'm wondering, is all sugar the same? Like, what about honey, agave? There's the new monk fruit out that has 0 calories, and stevia that has 0 calories. But there's been some concern with stevia now. But monk fruit, I have no idea if there's any concern, but I think that has 0 calories as well.
Maybe you want to break that into two
things.
If you can. Is sugar itself inflammatory per se, or is it the related, cascades that happen after? And then secondly, are all sugars equal in that regard?
Right. Well, I would just go back to the Kempner rice diet, where he actually said in his article that if you don't want to lose weight, eat more white sugar.
If you don't want to lose
weight.
Okay. Now, see, all these people were losing weight, right? And so when you hit your weight, whatever threshold of say blood pressure that you're going for, he said eat more sugar. So the answer is that in the short term, sugar is actually fine so long as you're not hypercaloric and you don't live on it long term, because sugar contains no nutrients, right? So this whole thing about the fructose fear and the sugar fear and this fear, the high fructose corn syrup fear. So if you look at high fructose corn syrup, people think, oh my God, it's fructose. Oh, there's fructose. Well, if you look at sucrose, it is fructose and glucose. What is high fructose corn syrup? Fructose and glucose. It's essentially the same thing. What's the honey breakdown? Basically the same thing, fructose and glucose. So if you overeat any sugar calories and your blood glucose response is high enough, you will have an inflammatory reaction.
Okay. So it's really go ahead. I was just going to say your inflammatory reaction would be because not necessarily of the sugar, but what was the thing you said? It's your body.
It's called like after you eat, it's called postprandial.
Okay.
So high postprandial glycemia creates an immediate inflammatory response. You may not feel anything, but it creates an inflammatory response. And so when it comes to all these natural sugars, why do people even care? It's because they're trying to feed the dietary crackhead. They are looking for something sweet, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it seems like, from long past, we like foods that are sweet. We just tend to, like that. So I guess we look for that. And then, there's also been the corn syrup issue. People are now buying Coke that doesn't have corn syrup. And so what's with the corn syrup? Any difference? Doesn't matter.
No, you can get organic rice syrup. It'll still give you diabetes if you eat too much of it.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Now, you can get organic rice syrup and shred and make your blood pressure get normal if you only eat a little bit. Because calories are so important. And you can look at the pre and post pictures of these Kempner rice diet people, and they went from big obese dudes and dudettes down to shredders, living on rice and sugar.
Amazing. Okay.
Right. And so people should find out what their markers are. Don't just go, oh, sugar is good for you. No. Find out what your markers are, get them normal. And it is really good, I think, to desensitize. Desensitize, maybe it's not the right word, but detrain your brain from wanting sugar. Because since we sit on our butts all day, the odds are we're going to eat more than we need, and that'll push us over our caloric threshold. Whenever you go over your caloric threshold, flame goes on.
Could we zoom back on the second part of that question that we were asking to see if you can give us some more insight? Is it the actual sugar itself that creates inflammation, or is the inflammation part of this whole insulin response that your body is actually doing because of this what do you call it, emergency? You give a different alarmist.
The alarm. Yeah.
So is it the sugar that's creating the inflammation, or is it your body's response and reaction to the sugar's overpresence?
Well, it's kind of like they're quasi the same. So when you have a postprandial elevation in glucose, your cells will be exposed to too much glucose. And so once glucose rushes into your cells, it goes right down the metabolic pathways that make energy. And so mitochondria, ever hear of mitochondria?
Yeah.
Right.
They're little organelle inside all cells that make our energy called ATP. Whenever you make ATP, you make free radicals. When you have a hyperglycemic blast, your mitochondria are making free radicals from the sugar excess, and there is no commensurate intake of anti-inflammatory, antioxidant nutrients, mostly your polyphenols from vegetation. So anytime that we eat sugar in excess and we get a postprandial glycemic blast, and it could be just it could be a cinnamon toast, right? So you get sugar, right? I mean, I used to like doing cinnamon toast, not so much for the cinnamon because I could get to put sugar on top of it, right?
Exactly.
So you get the flour and the sugar, right? And so you get a blast of glucose, and then you have an inflammatory reaction because the free radicals that are produced by the mitochondria, they start to trigger that nuclear factor kappa B that you mentioned last time, Melody. So the nuclear factor kappa B is a key signaling molecule that responds to the glycemia, the high glucose. And when you activate the nuclear factor, it produces pro-inflammatory proteins, cytokines being the most famous.
Okay.
So that's the answer to the question. So it's better to conceptualize it like that, which means since you're a thinker, Dunnigan, what you should do is read, I think it's chapter 9 in the DeFlame Diet that goes step by step by step.
Okay.
It's the scientific chapter. Yeah, that shows the sequence. So the average American, what do they live on? They live on 60% of their diet comes from, 40% of their diet comes from, 20% white flour, 20% white sugar, and 20% refined oils. That is the big blaster of the nuclear factor. And so if you go through that step, and I go through that step also in a couple of my videos, particularly the inflammation and sugar video, and when you see that, you'll be able to visualize it, and a visual image of it will be very, very helpful.
Okay. All right. I think you covered this the last time we were talking, but they were asking, this was TM, and it was 4 weeks ago. So he said, please let us know which foods you recommend to combat inflammation. I think we held up the book, the DeFlame breast book, and
there you go. Yeah.
And yeah, it was
so,
bad.
So what if he says, well, I don't like broccoli? Don't eat it. Eat something else that's green. I mean, it's
right. And then the other interesting thing he or she stated, are turmeric gummies okay to take, and are they helpful?
I don't know what, because again, you have to think about it from an individual basis. Is he obese and hyperinsulinemic? Then he shouldn't be taking in gummies that have sugar in it that pushes him over his caloric threshold, and then pushes him into a constant state of high blood glucose without eating, and then higher blood glucose with eating. So I always go back to, you want to find out what your markers are and get them normal, and make that your dietary guide, your markers being normal, and then you can relax about gummies and the occasional ice cream or the occasional donut or whatever. Who cares? It's not relevant as long as all your markers are normal. I'll give you an example. So a colleague of mine, I used to have lunch with him a couple times, once a week, on and off, once a month, and he would always order chicken wings and French fries, and of course, chicken wings are breaded and deep fried, and the French fries are deep fried. And so every time driving back to work, he would have the following experience, but he said it once. He goes, every time we eat here, my hands just feel arthritic and tight, right? And so I'm like, because I'm sarcastic a little bit, Northeast, I'm like, every time? He goes, every time. So I'm setting up, every time. He goes, yeah, every time. I go, and you keep doing it? Do you think that every time is going to stop being every time at some point in the future as you continue to get older and more inflamed? It's going to magically disappear? This is a smart guy who just wanted to eat deep fried wings and fries.
Yeah.
But he couldn't make the connection because there's this emotional block, because if you are quasi addicted, not really addicted, but I mean that's the term that's used, and generally it's okay, but it's not like addiction to, like, say, drugs.
Right.
But if you have this mental obsession with these foods, you're going to try to find out everything that you can do to allow yourself to keep eating it.
Right.
And so that's why he would do it over and over again. It wouldn't catch on.
Maybe he would want a salad once in a while instead.
Yeah. What would you say to a patient who says, hey, every time I do this, I would say, well, that's a sign, right? That means that you're a flamer, and these foods are clearly flamey. You've got to get all your markers normal. And then when all your markers are normal, go have some chicken wings and fries and see if you have the same reaction. And if you do, you can't have them anymore. So you see how it's like I'm not food possessed. I am marker and symptom response oriented. So my metric is not about carnivore, paleo, plant-based, Atkins, keto, could care less. Get your markers normal and then make that your guide to choose your foods. Now, that being said, if one has cancer, you're best to be in ketosis. And you can be in ketosis as a vegan too. What would you live on? Macadamia nuts, avocados, lots of coconuts, and then vegetation. But make it a high-fat, normal calorie, appropriate calorie, vegan diet. You can be in ketosis.
Okay.
So see, I orient based upon need, not based upon my preference. My preference would be chocolate cake, but I know that's not going to help me, and eventually I'll become an old fatty, and I'll be a sick guy, and I won't be able to surf and play golf till I'm hopefully 80, right? So I've got goals for the future, and so my goal is to basically weigh what I weighed when I was a senior in college, which was 170 pounds, and to keep all my markers normal. And that guides my food choices, not me being possessed by a leader's dictates that's just based upon whatever, words that would work for this person or that person.
Well, this has been very interesting.
Yeah.
I think it'll give people a lot more to go on, probably push some buttons for some people who have gotten really emotionally attached to this or that diet specifically, but you're talking about being practical and looking at the results rather than getting all hung up on the inputs. Look at the outputs and then adjust accordingly. We have one final, it's not a question, it's a comment.
Yeah.
This is from a Google user, which is an interesting username. I studied under Dr. Seaman at National University in Lombard, Illinois for my MS degree. He is the real deal, crazy smart. So you may not know everything, but you impress somebody that you're a bright guy. We always
if you only talk about what you know about, you can create the illusion of intelligence. Or the illusion of higher intelligence.
Well, you're always popular with our viewers here. So people, if you like this video, please click the like button and subscribe. The little bell icon will get you notified when we release more of them. And if you really want to support our ability to keep putting out this kind of great contact and interview with experts, please go to patreon.com/healingyourself and pledge any amount that you can on a monthly basis. It'll definitely help keep us going. So thanks, folks, for being there, and thank you, Dr.
Yeah,
David
and
Seaman.
just tell us, people who want to see more of your videos, I know you mentioned a couple of times, but go ahead and tell us your website.
Yeah. So if you just go to DeFlame.com, you can look at the stuff I have on my website, and you can link right to my YouTube videos.
Great.
My YouTube channel is DeFlame Nutrition, and I'm getting ready to I'm a slacker on doing videos because I mull over stuff. I'm like, should I do this? Should I do that? So now I got 4 or so that I'm getting ready to put up.
Great.
Yeah, and it'll address some of this confusion. So yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, HealingYourself.Life viewers.
We need your help in enabling us to continue to create great health videos for you.
So please support our mission by going to patreon.com/healingyourself and pledging any monthly amount you can.
Your pledge will also help us to afford a new Lyme peptide treatment therapy to improve our memory, and we will report on our progress to benefit you and others.
So remember, go to patreon.com/healingyourself and pledge today.
Were you going to tell them to go to patreon.com/healingyourself to pledge to help our memory treatment?
I thought I did. I'll do it. So please go to patreon.com/healingyourself and pledge today.
Thanks.
Hey, Reluctant Preppers. If you haven't heard, we've already started our monthly 1-ounce U.S. Silver Eagle thank you gift to one active Patreon subscriber each month, signed by your host, Dunnigan Kaiser. And you don't want to miss out on that.
Please help us grow by subscribing today at patreon.com/reluctantpreppers.